This is the Literary License Podcast with your hosts, Vicky Ray, John Wilson, and Keith Shorgo. Discussing book to screen and everything in between. Coming at you from the UK and USA.
They keep it real.
Are you aware that the Bramford had rather an unpleasant reputation around the turn of the century? It's where the Trench sisters conducted their little dietary experiments. And Keith Kennedy held his parties. Adrian Mercato lived there, too. So did Pearl A.
Who were the Trench sisters?
The Trench sisters were two proper Victorian ladies. They cooked and ate several young children, including a niece.
Oh, lovely.
Adrian Mercato practiced witchcraft. He made quite a splash in the 90s by announcing that he'd conjured up the living devil. Apparently people believed him, so they attacked and nearly killed him in the lobby of the Bramford.
You're joking.
Later, the Keith Kennedy business began, and by the 20s, the house was half empty.
I knew about Keith Kennedy. I didn't know that Mercato lived there.
And those sisters.
World War II filled the house up again.
Terrific.
The house?
The lamb.
They called it Black Bramford.
Perhaps. Awful things happen in every apartment house.
This house has a high incidence of unpleasant happenings. In 59, a dead infant was found wrapped in newspaper in the basement.
Do you know who Roman really is?
What do you mean?
He's Adrian Mercato's son.
What?
I'm going to show you something. Roman Cassevetes, Stephen Mercato, rearranged. Soon after that, in August 1886, his son Stephen was born. 1886, got it? That makes him 79 now. No coincidence. Shut up, you're in Dubrovnik. I don't hear you. His father was a martyr to it. You know how he died?
Honey, it's 1966.
This was published in 1933. There were covens in Europe. That's what they're called. The congregation. Covens in Europe, in America, and in Australia, and they have one right here. That whole bunch. The parties with the singing and the flute and the chanting. Those are espas or Sabbaths or
Honey,
whatever
don't get
they're called.
excited. Huh?
Read what they do, Guy. They use blood in their rituals, and the blood that has the most power is baby's blood. And they don't just use the blood, they use the flesh, too.
Rosemary, for God's sakes.
They're not setting foot in this apartment ever again. And they're not coming within 50 feet of the baby.
They're old people. They have a bunch of old friends. Dr. Shan happens to play the recorder.
Not taking any chances with the baby's safety. We're going to sublet and move out.
We are not.
Oh, yes, we
Well,
are.
we'll talk about it later.
Hello, welcome to the Literary License Podcast, and today we'll be discussing Ira Levin's Rosemary's Baby and the film by Roman Polanski, Rosemary's Baby. And before we get started, let's introduce everyone we have with us. And of course, today we have Vicky Ray, our normal co-host. Say hello, Vicky.
Hi, everybody.
Rob Kirby, comic artist, I should say, and writer, who did Boy Trouble, and he's got a new novel. And say hello, Rob.
Hello.
And we also have Dwayne Scott Kearney with us, who wrote Start over. We got Dwayne Scott Kearney with us, who wrote Selling Dead People's Things. Say hello, Dwayne.
Hey, everybody.
And before we get started, we'd like to tell everyone what we've been up to. So, before we do that, I'm all over the place. My brain is not with me, so sorry, people. But John won't be with us because he's working with the far left and the far right as he's doing the Super Bowl and the Oscars. So hopefully he's staying centrally located and see what he's up to, but he will be with us next week. So say hello to John. We miss you, and we'll talk to you next week.
You didn't give the obligatory fuck you.
No, I thought I'd give John, because he's working, then I'll go lay a little bit of niceness to John this time. So next time, John, you're in for it. So, so before we get started, let's say what we've been up to. So, Rob, what have you been up to since last time we've seen you?
Oh, let's see. I've moved and setting things up here. My dog, sadly, passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry. That sucks.
Yeah, I know. I love my little girl. But it's also when I go on trips now, like it's when we go away, it's going to be a lot less painful. There's no dog here to deal with, and that painful separation part was
right.
Hard, so
we're going
to take a break from dogs for a while. We had it for 13 years though, so it was really hard. But otherwise, just settling into the new place and drawing and writing and trying to get back in the groove of stuff. So that's mine.
And what about yourself, Dwayne? What have you been up to?
Trying to survive the weather, as I've got to have a store, Broadway Antique Market in Chicago. I still had to go in and make sure the pipes didn't freeze. And
oh my God!
The glory that is retail.
Terrible up there.
And was open for a couple hours yesterday, and there were still people who wanted to shop. It could be Armageddon, and people would want to shop.
Yeah,
it's Chicago. You guys
we're hardy folk. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yep. So just bouncing back from that, it's a balmy 26 degrees today.
That's a rougher say.
And what about yourself, Vicky? What are you been up to?
Still recovering from the holidays, just trying to get the year situated. I started watching True Blood, an HBO series on Amazon. It's sort of like the Vampire Diaries on steroids for adults. And just doing Shudder and my usual reading and taking Asher racing on the weekends and all that other good stuff. What about you?
Personally, I started watching this Netflix series called The Kingdom, which is actually really good. It's Taiwanese.
I watched it.
Program. Yeah, it's very good.
I watched the whole thing. I mean, I think I binged the whole thing in a week. I couldn't stop watching.
That's very good. Then I've been watching this new gay. I have to say, if you're coming out gay nowadays, you have so many better films than you did when I was growing up. When I was growing up, you had like Boys in the Band about this narcissistic group of gay guys who are miserable, or you had the gay horror story called Cruising, which was god awful, or you had a longtime companion which told you what happened to you if you were gay and what's gonna, that you're not gonna have longtime friends because of the AIDS virus. But now I'm just like, this Love, Simon is a really good film. I really, really liked it. And there's another one called Alex Strangelove. I got girls at work go, oh, have you seen this film? So I've been watching those. So they've been very good. And just catching up on all my book reviews and stuff like that, and working 9 to 5. And
your basic
timers is Dolly Partner, Lily Tomlin, or Jane Fonda, but it pays the bills.
Absolutely.
So, but that's about it, really. So before we get started, we got a new podcast that's going to be joining us. They're called the City Within Podcast. They're brand new. They're premiering next week. So what we're going to do is let you listen to this little teaser trailer for them, and we'll be right back.
The Great Cataclysm, which nearly wiped out all of humanity, forced the formation of the city within the walls. It has survived for 350 years now.
Do they know we have Ceres? Pretty sure that's their assumption.
It has done so by way of law, provided by the Council.
Is he in a safe location? They're not gonna find him if that's what you're asking.
The Enforcer has always been the Council's strength, but now that Ceres is missing, the law is vulnerable.
Good. Keep me up to date. I need to know everything. Yes, sir. Did you happen to catch the council meeting today? No, sir, I did not. Well, I was there.
It doesn't help that Sorel has taken it upon himself to appoint the 17-year-old Dayton in Ceres' stead.
Council is mad because Sorel claimed an emergency which has given him ultimate power. He's appointed Dayton to enforcer overlooking Theron, James, and the other two who are trained with Dayton. It seems he wants to keep the title enforcer in the Sorel family. So your plan is working then?
This cannot go on, Theron. Sorel needs to be stopped.
Yes, it's working perfectly. The council will destroy themselves, and we'll just take over. This city belongs to us.
Listen to The City Within the Walls on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, or go straight to the source for the podcast, music, and more at joshmonrosprojectalpha.com/The City Within the Walls. Again, that's joshmonrosprojectalpha.com/The City Within the Walls.
Amazon. Oops, wrong Amazon. Although we both contain an array of diversity, the rainforest with all of its animals and us with all of our products, come check us over today and find all the products you need quickly and efficiently. And buy it with one click. And now you can even use us to donate to your favorite charities using Amazon Smile. Amazon Smile is worth your while. Come check us out today.
So, welcome back. What we're doing now is going to be covering Rosemary's Baby, written by Ira Levin in 1967. The interesting thing about Ira Levin is Ira Levin's kind of the forerunner in novels. Before Rosemary's Baby, he did a thing called A Kiss Before Dying, which was made twice. Once was a film back in the 60s of Robert Wagner making his big screen debut. And later on in the 80s, we had Matt Dillon doing his version of it. But Ira Levin, what's quite interesting about Ira Levin is that he's actually the forerunner to like Michael Crichton when he did like the Stepford Wives, when he did Robotics and that story, which we'll be covering next week. And of course, Rosemary Baby, he started the whole horror boom that started in the 60s that carried us through up into like just before the 80s. He started that boom. And he also did Boys from Brazil, which is another thing, which is about genetics and Hitler. And he also did a sequel of Rosemary's Baby called Son of Rosemary, which we'll cover briefly, which, had some problems.
I didn't see it yet.
Actually, we're talking about the book, The Son of Rosemary, which is totally different from the movie sequel. Then, as we know, that Rosemary's Baby is now considered one of the best demonic Satan books of all times. It's now on a lot of critics' top 10 list. So before we get started, what did you think about the book, Rob?
Oh, I love, Rosemary's Baby, I think it's really a wonderful book. It's, to me, it's the forerunner of the slow burn, the modern slow burn. I'm sure there's other books that were, slow burn before this, but where all the horror basically is happening off camera. And it takes us into the modern age. It's Rosemary does housework and they talk about the newspaper strike and the Pope is coming to visit, which he actually was back in the 60s. Apparently Ira Levin really did he really took real events and he put them into the book. And the day he had picked for the novel for Rosemary and Guy to conceive the baby was actually coincided with when the Pope was visiting New York. So it was like this wonderful juxtaposition of something satanic that's going to happen and, the supposed holiness of the Pope, converging in the same city. I think it's a really great book. And it kind of, I read it at a young enough age that kind of set me off. To this day, I prefer more quiet horror stories, or again, like the slow burn. Everything that happens, the wind up is the most important part. I love it. I think it's great.
What about yourself, Dwayne? What are your thoughts on?
Well, I'm obsessed with this book. I've always been obsessed with it. I'm so excited to be here. And for different reasons, I'm going to echo a number of things that Rob just said too. But being an antique dealer, I get into a lot of old buildings, and I can't say buildings quite as fantastic as the Bramford, aka Dakota, aka Wyoming buildings, other buildings, the building that was really based on, given the address. And fortunate enough to live in a giant ass 20s building on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, which these buildings built before the Depression were nutty, just nutty. And where I live, without giving the address, was touted as like the most expensive rental building in Chicago when it was built. And that was the way that they promoted it. So to me, the Bramford is a huge character. It's actually maybe secondary to Rosemary in it. Certainly, you guys can talk later about with the film, the role the building takes in it. But I think there's very few books and films which deal so much with the layout of an apartment, the decor of the apartment. So I kind of come at it, and the horror aspect, which we'll be discussing, of course, so many layers. But I want to just talk about this kind of. I get off on the architecture of it. There's like no other way to say it. And that might sound odd, but I think it's so definitive to both the book and the film.
And what about yourself, Vix?
I thought the book was an easy read. It was like different, some kind. I guess that maybe what Rob was saying is like a slow burn. I liked the book because it was a page turner. You know, you wanted to find out what was happening. It did kind of build up to that one couple pages of whatever, when all hell breaks loose, literally. And the only thing like I said, when I was talking to you guys before we started recording, I mean, I love it, but I'm just trying to figure out if the author was a misogynistic man and he didn't like women or something. I guess it was the times, because like I said, I was talking to my girlfriends about it. I mean, this woman didn't stand a chance in book or film of ever running her own life. All these men just totally just obliterated any identity she had. She finally gets pissed, and gets in their face in the book, but that was really, and then she sees the baby and forget it. Only a face a mother can love.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the funny thing that you say about Ira Levin, I don't think he's a misogynist, only because he tends to he writes very strongly for female characters. If you read Kiss Before Dying, or even The Stepford Wives, or Baby. And what he basically does is that I think he shows women's roles, but he doesn't agree with what women's roles are. And,
I would hope not.
With his next novel that he would write be Stepford Wives, and of course, I think that was an understanding of that as women's lib was gaining momentum, and women were demanding more equal rights. Stepford Wives is probably pretty much shows where he stands, basically showing that women are a lot stronger, and that this is not what you want, sort of thing. So I know that he's not misogynistic. My only problem with Rosemary's Baby is that every time I read an Ira Levin book, I have to go back and reread his whole catalog over again. And I always find that it's like I read Rosemary's Baby, and then the next thing for the next 2 weeks is like I'm back to like reading everything he's written before, which is a plus. It's a minus for me only because I have so many books I have to review. And I have to review like 25 books a month. So it's like kind of gets in the way of that. But it's not too bad of a downfall. I also like the way that he brings in the Gothic castle. In this case, it's the Bramford, or the Bloody Bramford. And he brings that as like the Gothic castle in the middle of a city setting. And then he brings the normal people like you do in the Gothic novel. And he brings the normal all-American couple into this Gothic setting. And I quite like the way Ira Levin's able to balance everything, but not make it like an ode to the Gothic literature of the 1800s, but not so abruptly.
Kind of Bram Stoker-ish.
Yeah. And that's what I
like an update, a modern version of the Gothic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what Dwayne was saying, not just that, like the architecture, it kind of gets me too. I mean, just even in the film, I just love old buildings like that. Perfect ghost hunting fodder.
And the notion that this had been one giant apartment that's been split.
It's an enormous apartment.
It's enormous. Yeah. And again, it's a great plot point of at so many elements. I mean, it's brought up that closet. That closet is a huge plot point, kind of connecting the two stories. Like, and also it goes into what goes on in your neighbor's apartment. And we've all had that. You hear all these odd sounds of trying to figure out.
Right.
Are those old people having sex? No, it's just a recorder,
Just the meth addict next door.
God, I mean, I think that would pretty much haunt you if you hear Minnie and Roman having sex.
Talk about the Antichrist.
You'd probably be bitching at him then too.
I mean,
I loved who they put. What was the lady that played her in the movie?
Ruth Gordon.
Yes, God, she was brilliant. But we're not talking about the movie yet. But she was so perfect for that part.
I mean, there's a lot of great things about Rosemary's Baby, and even though Rosemary comes across quite weak, it was quite weird because you have like this weak facade, but underneath it, there's quite a strong, resilient woman underneath all that thing, because she's the one, she puts everything together, but I'm never quite sure what's going on between her and her husband, Guy, because nowhere in the book does Guy come across as a nice person at all. Not even when you first introduce them to him. That he's kind of a liar. He's a cheat. He comes across as misogynistic as the book goes on, but that's because it's of his own egomaniacism and the way that everything is surrounded about him.
He is an egomaniac.
But in the weird way that, I'm sorry if you're an actor, but I mean, I've lived with actors and I know quite a few actors, and they kind of are a bit narcissistic to that extent where it's all about them.
Well, yeah. Well, think about an actor. I mean, like, what is their key to success or failure? It's their body, their voice, their very physical being. They have to be present, and so they're very self-involved. And Guy is uber self-involved. He's a terrible man, And when we talk about the movie, I mean, I think John Cassavetes is brilliant in the movie, and he doesn't get nearly enough credit. And he plays him really even meaner than he is in the book. I'll bring up key scenes and we talk about it. But
I wanted to kill him half up through most of the movie. I wanted to sucker punch him. Oh my God, I just wanted to kill him. So I guess he did his job correctly because I wanted to kill him. I hated him.
Yeah. Rosemary is still stuck in, she's a housewife, and the women's lib movement it's making, noises and stuff, but it still hasn't really come into its own in the culture. And Rosemary she has a very little agency, and everything that she wants to do is basically kind of shut down, and she kind of just goes on. She's really submissive. So it is, I'm sure, it's very frustrating. I'm sure in particular for women in the modern day, you watch her.
So much about being a feminist. It's just like respect for another sentient human being. That's all.
But I also think that maybe you have is that, okay, let's say Rosemary's in her 20s in her books. So that means she was born in the 40s, late 40s. So therefore, she would have been brought up with a 1950s woman sensibility by her parents. I mean, the thing is that she did break away from her family, and she is the black sheep of her family, if you later find out. I mean, she's only, she comes from a largest family. She doesn't have much contact with them, though she does have more contact with her brother, who kind of keeps her up to date, but no one really else. The only other time we hear about her family is when the sister does call and says that she had a bad dream about her and wanted to know if she was okay. And that was a phone call that she hasn't received from her sister since she's moved away. So, and then you also got
sounds like a recovering Catholic too.
Yeah, she got all that Catholicism inside her as well. And we all know how that goes, right, Vicky?
Oh my God, the guilt that comes with that, and my mother's Italian, so I had double guilt.
Yeah.
I've got guilt.
So, I mean...
Sorry, Mom.
So, I mean, so I guess it does make sense in the whole confines. And you got to remember, 1967 is just before the women's liberation started to take hold as well. Women were just starting to break out. The love generation was just starting to happen at that time. The equal rights and freedoms and political marches and all that stuff was just about to get off the ground at this point. So I guess Rosemary would be a product of her environment at that time. I mean, it would have been interesting if Ira Levin wrote this like in 1969 or 1970. You might have got a different Rosemary.
Yes, completely different. You might not even have had the story because it seemed like it would have had to have been, she'd had to be submissive to support the role as the character, you know? I mean, she would, if she was like, say, if she was a, you know, like, I shouldn't say this word, like a feminazi kind of woman, the story wouldn't be, I mean, the guy would be giving birth, literally. Just saying.
But I do, what I do like about the book also is that the villains of the piece, they're not really like villains. They're like just normal people next door. Though they're a bit, you know, eccentric and a bit odd, you know, Minnie and Roman. I want to call her Merle Louise, but I don't think that's her name.
Laura Louise. And they're like, just like, you know, like those odd old people that, you know, are like living next door, or just a bit eccentric. And I like that they're fun, they're nice, and you don't really know what's going on in the undertone of it. It's only later on in the story that you realize there's a darker thing about it. But even the way they act towards her, they're not outwardly evil. They're not like, you know, not what you normally would get in a piece like this. It's like, oh, this is the villain here, and this is the villain, you know. You have all the attributes of a villain. You have these people who are just these odd neighbors, and though they're sinister, they're not horrible. And I
don't know. If someone drugged me and I had to have sex with Satan, I'd kind of not like him, you know.
Well, she's being gaslit by most everybody.
Yeah.
And I think we can all kind of connect to that feeling at the moment. Well, some of us can.
Yeah, and I do think that, but I did like the villains of the piece. I thought it's quite hard to hate them. I mean, you know, when we get to the movie, it gets even harder to hate them. But I thought in the book, it's like, you know, I quite liked Minnie and Roman. You know, when you do find out, it's like, okay, you know. But, you know, you do have the religious allegories that are going on in here, which is, you know, like if you take the birth of Christ, you know, I mean, that, you know, an angel came down and asked the virgin. So I guess that, you know, you have the complete opposite, that you don't ask the virgin to have a baby, you just force the person to have the baby. For Satan, it's just kind of like, but it's kind of, you know, but you do have these, like, you know, kind of interesting ways of like dealing with it. And I
don't think the Blessed Virgin had much of a choice in having a baby, to tell you the truth.
Lord Gordon, of all the women in the world, he chose you. He chose you out of all the women in the world.
Same deal, different book.
Well, you know, when they say that God isn't cruel, God is cruel, because nothing's worse. I mean, think about it. She's a virgin and she's pregnant, right? And that cat flap's not forced to go that way. So that had to be a painful birth.
But they got married really, really young a couple thousand years ago.
Yeah.
Because what was their life expectancy? 30, 35 maybe, if you're lucky?
So Mary could have been like 13, 14.
Probably. Poor Joseph, that must have been a hard pill to swallow.
Quite gullible, isn't he?
Sorry, Mom.
Tell me you're a virgin, but it's God's child. Okay. Yeah, sure. Nowadays, they just, like, you know, communicate them. But, excommunication. But that's what I quite like. I mean, I did like the eccentric characters in the background of the story. I mean, Rosemary, you know, she carries the piece, and you see, you know, everything from her point of view and stuff like this. But you know, it's the characters like Hutch that really bring the story alive, and you know,
right.
Laura Louise and Minnie and Roman and all those eccentric characters, and you know, the secondary characters that really bring this novel for me to light. That's what I quite love about it.
Right. And he described them all perfectly, too. I mean, this is like one of the first movie books that I can actually say that the book and the movie were almost identical for the most part. And you expected the characters you saw from the book to be in the movie.
Well, that's why.
Except for Ruth Gordon. Every time I see her, I think of Right Turn Clyde, you know? I always think of her as that mean old mother and what was it, Every Which Way But Loose.
Yeah, or Harold and
She was
Maude.
kind of stigmatized into that. The swearing.
I do sit there and say that with you know, when we get into the movie side of it, I find it a bit questionable that Roman Polanski gets the screenplay credit.
Right.
Considering that a lot of, I read the book and then I watched the film almost immediately afterwards, and a lot of the script and the lines are lifted from the book. There's not a lot of original lines in the movie whatsoever.
But that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
That's what I'm saying. It's the first movie, book, whatever we've done.
I think it's a good thing. I just don't think that Roman Polanski probably should have gave Ira Levin a screen credit for screenplay. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, I remember reading that he didn't realize, he was from, he's European, and he didn't realize that you really were almost required to make all these huge changes. And I just think that the book is so, what did Stephen King call it? He called Ira Levin, like, he was like the Swiss watchmaker of suspense novels, because it's such an intricate plot, and it's just all fits in so beautifully, all those little details. And there wasn't a lot, you could go ahead and make huge changes, and then you end up with a terrible made-for-TV thing that came out a couple years ago that was really awful. Did you guys see that with Zoe Saldana?
Well, Evans really wanted Polanski to do the movie, though. He kind of chased him down, it seems. He wanted him to do Downhill Racer, but I guess that the studio bought the rights to the movie or the book before Random House even put it on the shelf. And he wanted Roman Polanski to do it.
I think I think Ira Levin is quite bizarre, because when you do read his books and you do see the movie adaptations, he's probably the only novelist out there that is almost word for word every single one of his movies to scripts. Even Stepford Wives is almost word for word. Boys from Brazil, same thing. Sliver is another one of his,
right?
Even when they did that in the late 80s, early 90s with Sharon Stone, when you read the book, it's very, they didn't change anything, which is quite bizarre. The only time that I think that any of his books got slightly changed is A Prayer Before Dying, and that's in both versions. They used 2 sisters instead of the 3 sisters. And I think that's mainly for, movie time. To put another sister in, you probably have to make the movie 30 minutes longer, maybe.
Right.
But I find it very bizarre for Ira Levin that as far as his movie adaptations are concerned, they're probably the closest adaptation that you'll get for any kind of writer ever. To a certain point, like even Stepford Wives, if you read Stepford Wives and then see the film, the lines and the dialogue are lifted exactly from the book into the film. Even in Boys from Brazil, which I watched that recently after I finished reading the book, same thing again. You got Gregory Peck talking the lines that the characters are talking that are in the book. And it's just weird that, for me, I think nowadays what you would do is they would give the author some kind of screenplay credit, which that's what,
especially if it is verbatim.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of verbatim. And then Rosemary's Baby, it's all verbatim. The lines are all verbatim.
It is. Like I said, it was almost identical. There really wasn't nothing that was different from the book. Everything. And like you said, I was watching the movie, while I was reading the book, in intervals while I was watching the movie. And it was, he didn't write a screenplay. He just copied the book for the most part, but put it in a screenplay,
Yeah.
One of the things that I think was really brilliant is that they, like Dwayne was saying, the apartment is so important, and apparently that apartment is they set it up exactly as it was. They made the sets exactly as it was described in the book, because it's very important. That closet, which actually ends up being an artery into the other apartment,
right.
A very important plot point, and just and of course. The apartment is completely fabulous and you just want to live there, except you wouldn't want to meet your neighbors. It's exactly, the layout is exactly as it is in the book, and kudos. That's great.
One thing I didn't understand in the book and in the movie, because the book and the movie are so much the same. Did they think, they killed off the other older lady that was living in said apartment. Were they expecting this particular couple to move in? Could have been anybody, you think?
I think that Rosemary and Guy provided an opportunity only because of the suicide of the girl that was living with Minnie and Roman.
Supposed suicide.
If she didn't have the supposed suicide, well, no, she was cleaning the windows in the middle of the night. But I was assuming that Rosemary and Guy probably would not have found themselves in that circumstances if she didn't die and
want that apartment.
She was basically there to give birth to the son of Satan, and obviously that's what happened. And she threw herself out the window, for whatever, obviously she wasn't happy with that decision. But and then that's when Rosemary and Guy came into it. And I think, you do get Minnie coming into Rosemary's Baby after the suicide, and she's asking her all these personal questions, like, are you thinking about having children? Have you ever, do you come from a large family? Are your brothers and sisters fertile? Or
basically,
she's asking those kind of questions, along with how much did you pay for this chair? But so she is fishing around, and I think that. So and therefore, they need a replacement, and Rosemary provided the best replacement. As when Minnie comes in, she's asking questions even about Guy, and then when they do go over to their house for dinner, and this is where I find you don't really know what Rosemary's thinking, but I would like to think that maybe she could have. When Roman's talking to Guy about, I saw you in one of the plays he's doing. I think the movie and the book do the same. I think it's Luther. I think they use the same play in both. And he goes, I remember you had this staged gesture in the book. He says this, and Guy of course eats it up, because anything that deals with Guy and anyone talking about Guy Guy loves, sort of thing, and he starts eating it up. But you never really know if Rosemary actually twigs as like, well, this is I actually told her all this a couple hours before we came over to the house. So you're never quite sure what Rosemary thinks. So that shows that basically Rosemary and Guy didn't get the flat because they thought that, Rosemary could be the perfect mother to the son of the devil. It was just that they provided an opportunity after their suicide.
What a putz her husband is. I mean, he practically offered her up on a silver platter to get his career going. He was a total douchebag. Someone needed to smack him. I hated his character. What an awful person, A husband's supposed to be a protector and to love you and all that other good stuff. Not supposed to sell you off to Satan to have his baby. What the fuck?
Yeah, but the more money he makes, the better off Rosemary is. So
well, I guess that's one way to look at it, but they have one ugly baby.
He'd have been a great Stepford husband,
Yes.
Yeah.
He'd have done really well in Stepford.
I'd be all over the perks and benefits of having Satan's baby, but it has hooves and a tail and yellow eyes. It's not like you can have play dates, And he's got a black bassinet. I think that just cracks me up. The bassinet is black with the upside down hanging crosses. With you, he can play with them in his little mobile. It's like the total opposite of Christian. It's so funny.
What I think is interesting about the book is when the first edition comes out, what's on the cover but this, great turreted, ancient building, spooky. But in later editions, just to your point, it's the pram, it's the bassinet. That's the cover.
Well, this is the 50th anniversary.
Is
it the movie or the book? I think it's the 50th anniversary of the book edition.
No, the film. The film? Yeah. Amazingly enough, the book was published in 1967. The movie came out in 1969.
So the movie's 50 years old this year.
Yeah, and the film came out 18 months after the book was released, which is very quick and very fast.
Yeah.
But which when we get into the film, we got to thank William Castle. William Castle's the one that brought this to fruition. And God bless William Castle. Without him,
he did a good job.
Straight jacket, the Tingler, homicidal.
Yeah, but they're not. The funny thing about it is, it's like I have a lot of pagan friends, and I've been to a lot of pagan celebrations. And it's just kind of funny when these guys are like walking around naked and shit, because that's what they do. It doesn't matter how old you are, what body shape you are. There'd be naked people everywhere. It just cracks me up.
Well, it's a bit like a nudist beach, isn't it?
Walking around naked.
What's interesting about Ira Levin would actually go back into this world of Rosemary. He did write a sequel in 1997 called.
I'm gonna have to read that now.
Oh, don't.
No. I'm going to waste
curiosity, I read it, but it's not good.
Okay, so I'm going to waste some of my life.
Ira Levin, you really want to read his books. You want to read like A Kiss Before Dying, Rosemary's Baby, Stepford Wives, This Perfect Day is really good, and Boys from Brazil. And after that, it's Sliver I thought was pretty bad. Although it's fun to read. I mean, they're quick reads. And Son of Rosemary is a quick read, but it's pretty dopey.
Without giving too much away about Son of Rosemary, let's just sit there and say that the end of the book has a Dallas moment in it.
A Dallas moment, okay.
Which kind of I think the book. I think the book starts out quite well. The Son of Rosemary, I quite liked it, and then you get to the ending of it, you're like,
oh God.
Okay, we got Bobby coming out of the shower moment. So.
Oh no.
And I'll just leave it there. And
Keith, you basically just gave it all away. If anybody with any pop culture knowledge knows that, But anyway, yeah.
Well, the millennials won't. The millennials won't have a clue. So for your millennial, read the book.
If you're a millennial, well, actually, they had a remake of Dallas, although they didn't have that. Actually, that was Knots Landing, I think. Wasn't it? Knots Landing, when Bobby was in the shower.
No, it was Dallas.
Was it Dallas?
Yeah, because they killed Bobby off, and then Patrick Duffy couldn't get a job because, let's face it, all he had was The Man of Atlantis, and they're not going to bring that show back. And so all he had was Bobby Ewing to come back to. So obviously, it's like, well, no one's hiring me. I needed a paycheck, so let's bring him back.
Oh my God, they got a redo of Dallas now. I just can't get into it. I've tried watching it. I can't do it.
No, that went off the air. You're talking about Dynasty.
No. They did. There was a redo of Dallas, and it was on not the CW. I can't remember what it was on. One of those. It was on like at 11 o'clock at night. But I tried to like it. It was JR's son he was being the big douche canoe in this one.
Yeah, he was very nice looking. I'll give him. The Dynasty reboot's very good. I watched it.
I have not watched that yet.
Yeah, watch it. It's really fun. Nicola Sheridan's brilliant. So
I love her. Yeah, I'll have to watch it. Do they have the cat fights like they did in the old one?
Yeah, you get that, and they made it a bit more, it's 2018 where we got lots of it's multi, ethnic and a lot of, multi-sexual and. Yeah, it's up there. It's really good. It's really fun. It's all bitchy and catty and tongue-in-cheek, and it has some really good lines in it. And
I'll have to watch it. How many seasons so far?
We're in season 2.
Okay, so I don't have that much to catch up on. Okay.
It's on Netflix in the UK. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix in the US.
I wonder if I can sign into a Netflix in the UK over here.
You just have to if you go through a VPN network, start a VPN network, you can do it that way. But you can also look at the black web that way as well.
That's true.
Yes.
That's a good idea. Oh, I love it.
I know. I'll tell you how to get in the
Are you doing that? Are you being sneaky so that the United States, the CIA and or whatnot is not doing the Big Brother thing on your computer?
I have VPN. Yes, I do.
Do you like it?
Yes, I think it's well worth the price, and it gives you access to things that you're not supposed to have access to, so it's fun.
Oh, cool.
So
now I have to have it. Okay.
So what we're going to do is we're going to cut to a commercial break, and then we're going to come back and discuss Rosemary's Baby, the 1969 film by Roman Polanski. So we'll be right back.
Okay, Bradley, tell the class about your holidays.
Yeah, it was really good. My dad built us a new kitchen. It's got wooden bench tops and some stupid self-closing drawers. There was a dishwasher that was a real and even a breakfast bar. Mum thought Dad was a massive.
Get a kitchen installed without teaching your kids new words. Visit ikea.com.au. We can plan, deliver and install the whole thing for you.
7? Here you go. Originally, the smallest apartment was a 9. It's been broken up into 4, 5s, and 6s. This room, for instance, it would make a lovely nursery.
Oh, it's a wonderful apartment. I love it.
Let's have a baby.
Mrs. Woodhouse, congratulations.
Really? Congratulations.
Minnie Cassavetes has a herbarium. I'm going to have her make a daily drink for you.
You're pregnant.
Are you aware that the Bramford had rather an unpleasant reputation around the turn of the century?
Awful things happen in every apartment house. She seems so happy and full of... She said wonderful things about you and your husband.
This is for you from Roman and me.
Sometimes I think they're too friendly and helpful. Guy, I have a pain. I'm so afraid the baby's gonna die.
Rosemary, pain like that is a warning that something isn't right.
They're not setting foot in this apartment ever again.
What about what's fair to me?
There are plots against people, aren't there? Well, there's one against me and my baby.
If you say anything more about witches or witchcraft, we'll be forced to take you to a mental hospital.
I haven't slipped up, Doctor.
Catch his tail. He told the doctor to make sure that you got the room that was on his desk.
Read what they do, Guy. They use blood in their rituals. Monsters.
You're lying! You're lying! You're lying!
What have you done to it?
Hello?
What's your favorite scary movie?
I have a bunch of favorite movies. I watch them all on Shudder.com for only $4.99 a month.
That's a scary low price.
But if I had to pick a favorite, it'd probably be Scream.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the only streaming service that lets me watch hundreds of horror movies on demand.
I'll be right back.
Hello? Hello? Hello, are you gonna subscribe? Hello?
Go to Shudder.com to subscribe, if you dare.
Hello, welcome back. Now we're going to be discussing Rosemary's Baby, the 1969 film directed by Roman Polanski. And before we get started, Vicky, would you like to give us a synopsis of Rosemary's Baby?
Yeah. A young housewife comes to believe that her offspring is not of this world. Wayfish Rosemary Woodhouse, played by Mia Farrow, and her struggling actor husband, Guy, John Cassevetes, I can't say his name.
Cassevetes,
okay. Moved to New York City apartment building with an ominous reputation and odd neighbors, Roman and Minnie Cassavet. Well, I'm just murdering everything today. Sidney Blackmer and Ruth Gordon. When Rosemary becomes pregnant, she becomes increasingly isolated, and the diabolical truth is revealed only after Rosemary gives birth.
So, Dwayne, what are your thoughts about the film Rosemary's Baby?
Well, it's, of course, it's at the top of like everybody's horror list. And when both the book and the film came out, it certainly sparked a renewed interest in the devil himself. And
yes,
and you know, in so very much a cultural obsession, because we're to this day, because we're still always guessing. It's a bit of a parlor game as who the Antichrist truly is. And of course, that would be explored in films like, The Omen, etc. But I think, and it was what we were talking about earlier, is this is a book and a film which so defines the 60s. And what Rob was talking about earlier, too, that what's cool about it is that it so like seamlessly integrates real people and real places and real events mixed with these fictional characters. And I think that's why it works. I mean, look at Guy references when Guy makes the first lie, which is prompted by Rosemary's request about getting out of the lease from that original apartment. So he says they're going to go. He's going to go on a USO tour of Vietnam. So you got to let me out of the lease. So check that off, Vietnam. There's a reference to the Warren Commission in the book, which is kind of like this 3 years after the assassination.
Right.
Very relevant to this to the 60s. And then there's these little things, like Hutch says, if you want 19th century splendor, go to the Dakota. And Rosemary reminds him that it's a co-op, not a rental building.
Right.
I love that. There's again, it's like it's a real estate horror movie. I mean, how can you not love this? And then there's these other great little details, like and again in the film, Rosemary's sitting in Dr. Saperstein's office, flipping through an issue of Time magazine, and the cover is God dead?
Right.
And it was a real cover from April of 66. And then, things that are kind of, now would we be like politically, offended by it, but, they refer to the homosexual couple that lives in the building and Negroes. It's always
I don't even think Negroes like be called Negroes.
The Negroes, right?
It just sounds wrong. I don't know why.
But and again, what we were talking about earlier, and this is like my favorite. I refer to this as an Easter egg. I don't know if it really is, but there's when Guy is having breakfast and he's reading the theatrical pages from the newspaper, and Levin references that everyone else was out of town with Skyscraper or Drat the Cat, right? And which was a real Broadway show that he wrote, that Ira Levin wrote.
I didn't know that.
Now that's equal parts crazy and brilliant. I mean, that's chutzpah on steroids. I mean, it's just, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, it's one of these odd little things. But again, back to what like Rob was saying, it's going when it's this great mix of real world people and places and events, and that's what makes the story like all the more plausible. And I think it kind of leads to that the best line and most memorable line in the movie when Rosemary says, "This is really happening." I love this "you are there" feeling. It's in the tone, and I think Ira Levin's writing in many of the things which Keith has mentioned. Ira Levin's writing is just so immersive, and it's so efficient, and it's so cinematic. It's just so smart. And then finally, what I love is this is Rosemary's story. As the viewer or the reader, you don't discover anything any sooner than Rosemary does. Mm-hmm. And I think that's just a great narrative to go along. So I mean, you kind of feel her pregnancy pangs, right? It's just so, and her eating the chicken hearts and all this.
Oh man,
it all builds up to that, and then it just makes it all the more believable.
Yeah, the raw meat, that's no kidding. When you're pregnant, there's a certain time when you're pregnant that you actually want a steak that is like walk through a warm room. It is seriously a craving.
I love that.
It just is. But I wanted to throttle her most of the movie. Like I was telling the guys I guess it was you were on. I didn't see you then. But I was like, I'm not a big feminist when it comes right down to it, not card carrying. I'm in all the women's rights stuff, but I mean, I'm not a rabid feminist. Sorry, people. But I think that this movie was presented itself right now in this day and time. A lot of women would want to throttle Rosemary as well. She's just nothing but pushed around by men this whole movie. And it's just like, oh my God. And then she goes to the doctor and like, I guess when you're watching the movie, it's like, oh shit, this guy's in with him. He's going to tattle on her, and they're going to come get her. And it's just like, I was talking to my friend who was kind of raised that way in California, of all places. And she said, that's just the way it was back then. Men just took control. And if you were walking around without said penis, people were going to push you around. That would just madden me. I don't think, even if I was born in 1964. So my mother raised me be a big mouth and the person that I am today, but it was very misogynistic, I thought. The whole movie, it drove me crazy.
But it certainly encapsulates the 60s, though, because like we were saying earlier, in the 70s, that wasn't going to be happening.
I know, it's like, and they wonder why women get pissed,
Well, I was kind of wondering
right there, read Rosemary's Baby, men.
When they were casting this, Mia Farrow wasn't the first choice. Roman Polanski wanted Tuesday Weld. He wanted a full-figured girl next door type.
She was whitefish.
And then he wanted like Sharon Tate, his then fiance, to be part of it. And then they decided no, they needed a bigger role because they weren't sure if the book was going to be that popular because the book had to come out. That's when Mia Farrow came into it. So I'm not sure. Would it have been different with the same script if another actress played it? I think I'm not saying anything against Mia Farrow, but Mia Farrow she is she does walk through everything very wispy. Her voice is very wispy. She looks, she acts like a little girl. I mean, to be honest, she looks like Haley Mills when she actually gets her. But so I'm kind of wondering if another actress played a role, would it come across differently? Excuse me, Rob?
Don't you think that makes the audience care for her more? Like, you're really frightened for her because she's so waifish.
Yeah, so vulnerable.
I was angry for her. I wasn't feeling sorry for her. I was PO'd.
I mean, I think
wow, this has got to go ahead.
But Mia Farrow comes across as the perfect victim in the film, and that's I always kind of wondered if someone else played the role, would she, and said the same with the same script, would she come across as the more victim? Because even the way she says her lines and everything like this, which is fantastic in this role, and Mia Farrow kind of gives us every single role that she does, she's always kind of the victimized. Even in the Woody Allen films she's did, whether
and there's when she had the cocktail
and
party,
even in Peyton Place, if you look at the old Peyton Place TV series where she started from, and I'm always a bit shocked about who her mom is. I mean, Maureen O'Hara is her mom, which Maureen O'Hara is one of these actresses who doesn't take any gruff from anybody.
No kidding, I didn't know that. That was her mom in real life?
Yeah.
No kidding, I did not know that. Interesting.
So I think that, because she's so weak and mild, and her voice also lends itself to that. And I think that's why the film works. But there are times, I think, watching it with modern eyes, that you do want to throttle her. You want to slap her and tell her to wake up, sort of thing.
Yeah. The only thing she did that was defiant was have that cocktail party and invite all of her defiant female friends. It's like she's got all these strong women. Why is she so pussified? That's the word.
Well, I think what we do have, you have someone who's trying to present the perfect facade. And, and a lot of things that we've covered in the Literary Podcast is about these women trying to give off the perfect picture, when below the surface, it's not as perfect as you are. So she's trying to be the perfect housewife. People come to her house. She's trying to be the perfect host. She's trying to provide, the perfect outlook to everything. She's, an actor's wife. She could have had a career. She chose not to have a career. I mean, she did go to school, and that's how she met Hutch. She was a student living, and Hutch was her neighbor. That's how they became close, and Hutch kind of adopted her to, kind of a surrogate father kind of role. And then she married Guy, and she kind of gave everything up to be like this housewife, which, and at that time period, a lot of women were doing. You got these really strong women who, get married and put everything to the side, and they're going to raise a family and be the perfect wife. But I think,
and then she gives birth to the most imperfect child of all time,
right?
Which is a great juxtaposition,
right?
Him with a little that he has to wear mittens. I love that's in the book that they don't put into the film, but he's wearing little mittens so he doesn't scratch himself.
Were you guys kind of hoping that they would show the baby as opposed to just looking at the black bassinet?
I think it was a wise choice not to show the baby. Now, I think in today's term, if the film was made modern today, I'm not saying remake the film, but I'm saying if the film was made today, I think you probably could have done the baby a lot of justice. But because you don't see the baby, and I don't think that the special effects would have been great, that it might have, the film might have stood the test of time. I think it's because it stands the test of time because you don't see the baby, and it leaves a lot to imagination.
Yeah, I agree, and it's very much like an old time radio drama, because the audience has to kind of just envision or guess, what is in that bassinet there. What is in that pram? And one's imagination is often so much more horrific than the reality of what they might have shown you.
Nobody wants an ugly baby. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, it was absolutely the right choice. Roman Polanski did not want to show anything really supernatural. The only thing really that you see anything supernatural is in the dream that she has the dream.
Right.
Yeah.
He just wanted to ground the whole story in reality and just have us use our imagination. I could think of what I see in my imagination is much more frightening than what I
exactly
shown. So and like I said, Rosemary's Baby basically was one of my earliest horror films, and to this day I really do like stuff that's off camera more.
Leave more to the imagination.
Generally smarter, not that I don't love good blood and thunder, bloody, monstrous stuff, but the stuff I'm really gonna love and come back to is the stuff that is a little more ambiguous. So
I thought it was kind of funny though. The guy was trying to explain when she woke up with the scratches and everything else that he was stealing it from her when she was drunk and passed out.
That's called marriage rape, isn't it? I mean, that's date rape.
And not only that, he has the gall, the audacity to make her make him breakfast.
Oh, I know.
That's where this guy is the worst. And the other real villain in this movie, Dr. fucking Hill.
Oh my God!
Goes to Dr. Hill. She's pouring her heart out. She's really frightened. What does he do? And he's not even a Satanist. He she's a hysterical female. I'll give her back to her husband, who she's terrified of, and it'll all work out. I mean, he's awful. Yeah, he's a terrible.
I so agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, and also going back where that guy just makes a joke of it. It was like a little he had a little necrophilia moment, and he couldn't.
No kidding.
Couldn't help himself. But when I was looking at this, and you knew we were going to be doing this for quite a while, this had never really occurred to me. But there's actually a lot of really good black humor within all this. There's some lines in there that are thrown out that are. I mean, it goes by so quick. Both in the book and the film, but early on when they're remodeling the apartment, Guy uses a Red Devil paint remover to work on the bench that Rosemary bought. Yeah, I mean, it's just this little.
Really? Oh, I never saw that.
I didn't notice that either.
Yeah, and then Rosemary, she has that kind of that inner dialogue, or she just kind of talks to herself. And she's playing with the little with the necklace, and she says, "Tennis, anyone?" I mean, it's freaking brilliant. And you go through it, and there's a lot. And my favorite is when Rosemary questions Guy that if Dr. Saperstein is a witch. Guy says his big ambition is probably to make house calls on a broomstick.
Right.
I mean,
that I caught.
So in this darkness is someone asked Ira Levin if he'd ever considered writing a comic novel, and he said he just couldn't do it. And the author of this piece I'd read was like, he thought he already did, and it's this.
I do know they didn't have a problem showing brand names in the movie for whatever reason. Because I guess, years down the road, you notice they don't show brand names, or they make up a name like computers, like an Acer computer. They put something else, Yeah. But they didn't. But they see all the Pepsi products, Coke products, and all the potato chips, cleaner products.
Well, they even her hairstyle is name brand.
Vidal Sassoon, yeah. I hated her hairstyle. I really think she was.
So did Guy.
Dude.
I know. I mean, he was horrible.
The worst thing you ever did.
Well, it was. He wasn't lying. That was the worst haircut ever. Oh my God.
Well,
sorry, Vidal Sassoon lovers. I didn't like it.
But it was, to me, it was like when she got the hairstyle done, it's like, it's supposed to be the rave of 1967. But I thought to myself, like, Haley Mills had that same haircut in The Parent Trap in 1964.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I have to say this film is wonderfully cast. I think everyone that's cast in this is picture perfect as far as the casting goes.
Yeah.
Ruth Gordon is
brilliant.
She's fantastic. When you first see her and she's got her hair in her handkerchief, in her blue polka dot handkerchief, and her curlers hanging out, and she's wearing
her overdone makeup. She's wearing blue eyeshadow.
A girl can never wear enough blue eyeshadow, I tell you.
No kidding. I remember the blue eyeshadow. Everybody went through the blue eyeshadow phase where you had to put that shit on your lids. My father goes, "Get that shit off your face."
And just her pronunciation or mispronunciation of words. chocolate mouse.
Yeah. She kills the English language. In any movie she does, she just totally annihilates it.
She's the only person. She's the absolute best actress for that part.
Yeah, she was perfect.
Bar none.
Well, even Sidney Blackmer as Roman, he's fantastic as well. And I mean, and I love Hutch. I mean, Maurice Evans. I mean, what a voice. I mean, we would hear his voice, you know, the same year was a couple years later. He would do Planet of the Apes, you know. Dr. Zaius.
That's right. Oh my God. I was trying to place him the other day when we were watching that. I was trying to place him, and it's like, who is that? And I didn't really feel like going and looking it up. I was lazy that day, but I was going, I know the voice.
Maurice Evans. I mean, you know, and Patsy Kelly is Laura Louise, and even Elisha Cook, you know, the guy who shows them the apartment. I mean, every single person is down to fantastic. It's probably one of the films is everyone's perfect as far as the casting is concerned.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, even Tony Curtis is the voice of the actor who went blind. That's Tony Curtis's voice that you hear in the background.
Yeah, Donald Baumgart, yeah.
And did you know that Mrs., the one who's like, we're your friends, Rosemary, honest and truly we are. She is actually the voice of Mrs. Butterworth from the Mrs. Butterworth commercials in the 70s, the maple syrup.
Right?
Oh, God.
That's cool. Listen to it like, oh, my God, that isn't the voice of Mrs. Butterworth. That was her. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
We'll never look at maple syrup again the same way.
Mrs. Butterworth. I think they got in trouble for having a mammy kind of whatever.
I think John Cassavetes is an interesting choice, considering that he's one of these actors who's always been on the fringe. He's one of these fringe actors. He turned into a hell of a director. His son, Nick Cassavetes, is, you know, of course, directed The Notebook and other films today. But he was quite an interesting choice. I think he's a fantastic choice, considering that they were looking at Robert Redford and Jack Nicholson at this time to play this role. But I think John Cassavetes is an interesting choice for this role, which I think pays off.
He brings this kind of like New York. I mean, he has this kind of New York grit to him. You know, he really feels like a New Yorker.
Old New York
I think
grit.
he's really good. And I think that John Cassavetes plays Guy as a real, you know, is just even meaner and more snake in the grass. He's always, if you watch him, like when Rosemary gets suspicious about something, he always looks really irritated, like, oh my God, what are you talking about? And he just kind of like abuses her in this real subtle way, you know, as he's gaslighting her. But look at his face when I'm trying to think of some good examples. Like, what do you mean, Rosemary? And you can just see he's just getting really pissed off. He just wants this whole house of cards to stay up just long enough so that they can get their payday, you know?
Right.
And it's all fall apart.
Such a jerk, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally hated him in the role. I mean, he did a good job. That's why I hated him. But I mean, man, I just wanted to smack him right across the lip. Boom. Oh, he was awful. So you're right. He played the role perfectly. He's a total misogynistic pig and traded his wife off on a whim, you know, and you're not, you know, husbands, like, women find that offensive because husbands are supposed to take care of the family.
Well, I had difficulty with their relationship. Their relationship is an odd relationship. Even before, when they first move in the flat and they're having the picnic and she's like, would you like to make love? Sure. It's all, it was all very mechanical.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like, okay, let's get our clothes off. You know, I mean, I guess, I don't know, maybe, I think that with Roman Polanski, you do get a stark reality to situations. Whether you watch The Tenet or any of his other films, there's always kind of this stark reality to relationships anyway. You know, Roman Polanski doesn't film things beautifully. He tends to do things realistically. And so I'm kind of wondering if that has to do with like, okay, we're going to make these people as real, as normal as possible. And so we're going to have this awkward scene because that's the way couples are. They're just like matter of fact once you've been together for a long time. And then maybe that's, when you do watch Hollywood films, and this is Roman Polanski's first Hollywood film at this point. Before that, he was an independent director. And maybe that what it is, because we're so used to seeing a Hollywood film is that when their lovemaking scene does happen, it's kind of all kind of beautifully done, well lit, people just kind of fall into their roles. But I guess with Roman Polanski, because he's figured, maybe he thought, okay, this couple's been together for ages, they're married, or like, so if you're gonna have sex, you're just kind of gonna disrobe and then kind of get into it. You know what I mean? I'm not quite sure, but I always find that scene always a bit odd for me.
Well, I mean, it takes a good 30 seconds for him to get his pants off.
Yeah. Yeah,
which seemed actually kind of real, but also she's the one who suggests making love. It's like, okay, fine,
Yeah, they're just sitting there at the dinner, eating their dinner.
Okay.
But it was only, but it did feel like very mechanical. It's like, okay, well, and he's almost like, okay, if that's what you want to do, fine. So like, oh yes, please. It's like, okay, fine. Let me just take my pants off. As you said, begin 30 seconds of film gone.
Yeah. 30 seconds. That's about right. It did take him a while.
Well, they must have been some really tight pants because he's.
Well, he had to take off his shoes and stuff, didn't he?
And his socks.
Well, if you're going to make love, I guess you have to take off your shoes.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of things I find very odd as well with Rosemary as well. Like after the consummation of her night with the devil, and she never asked Guy. The whole time that you see Guy in bed, you apparently assume that they're both nude in bed because she's never wearing a bra. She's always kind of nude in bed. She's always got the blanket to cover her breasts. He's always kind of bare chested, and we're always assuming that they sleep in the. I'm assuming that we're supposed to assume they sleep in the nude, and so then you have that, and he's got his pajamas on, and you're thinking she never once questions that. But I always found it a bit odd. I mean, us as the viewer,
she did in the book. She did in the book. Do you guys remember? She said, "Why do you got your pajamas on? Why are you wearing pajamas?" Why was he wearing pajamas? Because it's clear they were very comfortable with sleeping nude.
I think the reason why he does is I think it's to show Guy that Guy has guilt about what has happened, because later on we got Rosemary confronting Guy saying, "You never look at me. You don't even look at me anymore. Why don't you look at me anymore?" And Guy makes sure that he's out of the house and not around her as much. And I think that's to show that Guy has a bit of sensibility to Rosemary and feels guilty about what he's done, maybe.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think he's a human being. I mean, he's a lousy person, but he does feel some remorse over what he's doing. But, he's an actor. He's got to make it. Right. So,
and make it happen.
And is he distancing himself from Rosemary?
Oh, yeah.
By wearing his clothes. It's kind of like that relationship they had is now over.
Well, on the other hand, who wants
she's dating the devil.
To the devil,
Yeah. Well, it's that.
Well, I mean, it's, I guess it's a bit like, let's face it, he offered his wife out to be a surrogate mother. That's what he's done, per se. I think in Guy's mind, he's probably thinking, well, we'll do this. We won't raise this baby. The baby had nothing to do, because to be honest, they don't give the baby to Rosemary. I mean, Rosemary pretty much has to force her way into motherhood at the end of the film. But basically, the Cassevetes were the ones who were going to actually raise the baby. They weren't expecting Rosemary to raise the baby at all. And I think in Guy's mind, to give him a little bit of credit, not a lot, is I think in his mind, it's like, she'll have this baby, we'll get what we want, we'll move to Florida, and we'll start our real family. So this baby's not going to be mine, it's not going to be hers, and this baby's not going to be part of our lives. It's going to be part of an experience that we'll need to get over, but we'll be able to move on for our lives.
Well, he's always promising her that we're going to go to Hollywood, we're going to have a house in the Hollywood Hills and a pool and 3 kids and her own herb garden. And he's does that a couple times, which is just probably a lie. But
what cracks me up about the whole coven thing is I've never seen a geriatric coven before. Everybody is old, and they really don't explain why everybody's old.
Well, you did have a couple of young people in there. You had the Asian.
That's true.
The young Asian there who was taking pictures and stuff. And I think, I don't know. I think that's just, I think that's just the way that you want to film it, sort of thing. But in the book they do explain that there's covens everywhere. That this is just the one in New York in this one building, but you assume that there are covens in other places in New York and other places around the world.
They got the devil on speed dial. I mean, obviously he likes this coven more than other covens, I'm assuming.
Well, and not to be cruel, but it's showing people, older people, less attractive people, makes the whole piece feel more uncomfortable and unattractive, and that's really cinematically effective. It's also very darkly lit, thankfully, so we don't get to see so much all the sagging and wrinkles. We just know that.
This was like the advent.
Sexy.
of the Anton Szandor LaVey boom, kind of like following shortly thereafter. Don't you agree?
Well, Anton LaVey helped with the making of the movie. He's very
I didn't know that either. I did not read that any research.
When we get to Helter Skelter next month, it's going to come up basically that the reason why that Sharon, there was speculation that the reason why Sharon Tate was murdered before, what we know the real story is that Anton LaVey, that Roman Polanski made a pact with Anton LaVey and didn't pay up to it. So there might have been Anton LaVey and his followers because of their help with Rosemary Baby and not getting the proper credit that they should have gotten.
Right.
And that was one of the theories at that time when Sharon Tate was murdered.
They had so many conspiracy theories to this day about a lot of that.
Yeah. But
tragic.
I mean, to be honest, I think Anton LaVey, because of Rosemary Baby, at that time, it was mentioned that he did help out with it, and he got a lot of newspaper coverage at that time as the film was going out to help promote the film and promote himself. And, as we know, he's very big on self-promotion. So, he kind of was feeding on that for a little while. But then, of course, once the film comes out and then the film goes away, then his self-promotion days kind of went to the back burner again, sort of thing. Because, people were probably moved on to the next best thing because it's before video and sort of thing. And, I think it didn't make it to network television until like 1972, around the first time it showed up television.
I don't recall. I was still little, so I don't remember.
Yeah. So, so at that time, it's like, once a film came out, you basically just, you went along on the marketing train until the film left the theaters, and then that marketing train just moved on to something else. So,
and he started coming out with his books, though, the Black Bible. And
he timed that out to coincide with Rosemary's Baby the film release at that time. They all came out in 68, 69, sort of thing. So, But yeah, I do think that, but, going back to what you're saying about, the ages of them, I also think that if you're going to be part of a coven, chances are is that you're probably all going to be around the same age anyway. You're going to, there's not going to be a lot of young people or people in their 20s wanting to hang out with a bunch of 70-year-olds, sort of thing. You might, I imagine that, they might join up and they might offshoot and have their own coven, but I can't really see a bunch of 20 and 30-year-olds hanging out with these 70-year-olds.
There's a lot of elders that have a little hierarchy or a lot of covens, though.
Yeah, but I'm saying that your covens tend to stick around the same age ranges, from what you do,
Pretty much.
And even if you look at church groups as well, I mean, it's like, you have your church circles and stuff like that. The elders hang around, their elders, and then you have the middle-aged family with couples and children. They hang around each other, and then you have the kids hanging around with each other until the kids get smart enough and lead a life of their own and then break away from the church. But
thank God.
So I think
like we had to.
I do think it's keeping with what a coven would be. So, I mean, the interesting thing, I'll touch briefly on this, is that they did make a sequel after the film networked on television. 1976, ABC Friday Night Movie back in 1976.
Oh my God, that
sequel called Look What Happened to Rosemary's Baby. Patty Duke would play the part of Rosemary. And as I was talking to Dwayne earlier, Patty Duke is pretty much in her Neely O'Hara Valley of the Dolls mode, acting and everything. So a lot of big acting. The interesting thing about the film is that they separated the film in 3 different stories. And what you have is like a Bible. You have the Book of Rosemary, the Book of Adrian, and the Book of Andrew. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad acting. There's a lot of hysterics going on. You got Patty Duke. You got Tina Louise from Gilligan's Island making a debut. You got Donna Mills before Abby Ewing, before Knots Landing. She's in it. And basically, the only cast member to return would be Ruth Gordon. And she pretty much phones it. And there's a lot of voiceover work from Ruth Gordon. And there's a couple scenes where she's coming in. And she's a little bit fragile at this point in her career as well. And later on, she would be up for, Every Which Way But Loose films that she did after that before, she finally passed in the 80s.
She was so good in those movies, though. She was brilliant. She was just a great actress. She really was.
It's kind of like, I think they brought her in. I think she did it for the paycheck. But you can tell that her spark was kind of gone here. And the thing is, she had got her spark back in Every Which Way But Loose. And even her last film, like Garbo Talks, that she did, and Maxie, that she did with Glenn Close, she's fantastic in those films. And that was her last film. And that spark was still there. I just think that she wasn't very happy. And I think she came in and did the paycheck for it. And it has a lot of good ideas in it, but it's on YouTube. If you got an hour and a half of your life that you'll never get back, I suggest giving it a watch. But I do think that it would have been nicer if they had a decent, if they're going to do a sequel to Rosemary's Baby, I would love to see what they would have done with it. Like, what's the relationship with Rosemary and Guy like? What's Adrian or Andy doing, sort of thing. And it would have been quite interesting, but I don't think that any kind of sequel, whether you're looking at the book, Son of Rosemary, or this film, that they actually explore anything. The guy playing Guy Woodhouse is not John Cassavetes. It's some guy I've never seen before, but I think that he was bald and they killed a cat and put it on his head for a wig through the whole thing. So that was pretty sad.
Oh, no. I got to watch it now. Gee.
Yeah. His hair had a wig of its own. Let's put it that way. So, but it's quite interesting that, but as you said before, they did do the remake miniseries, which was basically an hour and a half, 2 episodes, or they sometimes would separate into 3 or 4 episodes of an hour each. And that was a lot of missed opportunities. They took the story and moved it to France, sort of thing. The building was interesting, but not interesting enough. The characters weren't very interesting. They kind of changed things a little bit around, and so that wasn't a total thing. So
I think we get spoiled to the originals, and you expect that anything after that is going to be, you're expecting the same kind of, zip to it or whatever made you like the original to begin with, and you're always disappointed. I am in a lot of reboots. I hate it when people make reboots of stuff. It's like, please don't do that. I don't know about you, LaDwayne and Robert, but I hate it when they reboot old stuff that I love. Like, at least Planet of the Apes, when they rebooted those were at least generally really good and well done, because the makeup was really cool and stuff. But it still wasn't Charlton Heston, though. You know what I mean?
Well, I think with the Planet of the Apes, they did something very interesting. And I think that if you're going to reboot any kind of series or go back into a series, is that look at your timeline, look at your catalog. I mean, Planet of the Apes has, 8 films? And so what they found is like, well, basically what we have this gap where when Charlton Heston comes into Planet of the Apes, is that the world turned into apes. How did that happen? Let's look at this gap here and let's explore this gap.
Right.
And I think that's why they're successful. With a lot of reboots, they don't really do that. They kind of don't look for the gap in a series or a series of films. They find something about remaking what's already been there. And I think, look, let's take Halloween, for instance. We got the first Halloween and we got Halloween 2. And then
they follow no timeline.
And then, Jamie Lee Curtis's character is dead. She has a daughter. And then she never had a daughter. Now she has a son because she's an H2O.
Confusing timeline.
And they kill her off in the resurrection. She throws herself off because Michael comes to visit her at a mental institution. And now we got Halloween 2 where Laurie's alive again, but Halloween 2 didn't happen. So she's no longer Michael's. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like,
I didn't see the last one. What did Dwayne and Robert, did you guys watch the last Halloween that came out?
I thought it was fine. I think it's maybe time to put Halloween to rest. You're never going to match the original, which is a really wonderful little, lightning in a bottle horror film. Yeah. It was meant to be a little cheap exploitation thing, and it's really, really well done. And it's become part of the horror canon, and they're going to make sequels and they're going to do reboots and blah blah blah, because that's what we do in our culture, but it's never going to top. I thought the new one was fine. It was fun to watch, but I'd rather watch the original again. They can stop, and also seriously, we stop messing with the timeline. They have done so many different iterations of that story. It's ridiculous.
So not consistent.
Yeah. So I love TV, but
sort of like Jason Goes to Hell. Yeah, I was laughing about that last month. I was watching the Jason once. I was like, oh my God, I know Keith likes them.
The thing with me, at least Jason's immortal. I mean, he's demonic, whatever creature. Michael Myers is a man. And, basically now we have Michael Myers geriatric killer. You know, I mean, let's face it. I mean, he's got to be like what, in his 70s, and he's still out there killing people.
But he's got to be supernatural because he doesn't die either.
Well, no, he's not supernatural. He's still a man. If you look at anything that they say that Michael Myers is just a man, sort of thing.
The boogeyman. He's the boogeyman.
Yeah, but I don't know.
He's totally the boogeyman. They say it in the original. Just deal with it. He's the boogeyman.
Oh yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of. I mean, it's good to see Jamie Lee Curtis back.
Yeah.
You know,
somehow he got to be the boogeyman. He didn't apply for it. It just happened by serendipity. So, you know, just
serendipity.
Yeah. You don't choose. You are boogeyman or you're not. And he just is, I guess. You know? So, kill your sister and you become the boogeyman.
But that whole epic period of, the first horror movies and stuff coming out, you can't top all those. Rosemary's Baby and all that. I mean, all the movies that came out of the 60s and early 70s and the mid 70s. I mean, that stuff is just epic. You can't really redo that without having some criticism. I'm sorry.
Well, my friend Millie at work, I was talking about, we were doing Rosemary's Baby this weekend. She goes, "Is that the sequel to The Omen? Is The Omen the sequel to Rosemary's Baby?"
Yeah.
Right.
I know. I mentioned to a couple people I was doing this, and we came up with the line: "Is this the sequel to the remake of an encore presentation?" Because it's just it's because to your point, there's not that there's I think there's just so much lessened originality now. Not that there aren't some wonderful films and things that are coming out, but oh my God! I mean, I'm not a comic book person. I get dragged a lot to all these comic book movies, but it's constantly being explained to me about what character this is and how they came about and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Like some big sci-fi science fiction soap opera, rather, that I just don't care about. Where something like Rosemary's Baby is iconic, and it shows you when you fuck with something, you get shit.
Basically.
Yeah, it's just I have so much more respect when just for some little film, and there's no sense messing with perfection. Just leave it at that. I think
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't make that. I can't really. You said that they made a reboot, Keith.
They didn't. They made it for television, which, as Dwayne was saying earlier, was Zoe Zandana. The guy from Suits was in it. To be honest, I didn't. It's hard to rate. The only thing that's interesting is that Jason Isaacs in it, which is Malfoy's dad in the Harry Potter films. He's quite a good actor, and I think
yes, he is.
I think that everyone gives their best try. I don't think anyone's horrible in it, but they got a really bad script, and they got it's shot kind of and the story is kind of and so everything about it is kind of sort of thing.
Right.
And, I always kind of wonder that. I think that if they're going to do anything with Rosemary's Baby, it would be quite interesting to go back and look at what happened to Andy or Andrew, where he is today. And maybe if you're going to do Rosemary's Baby, maybe not remake the actual movie, because I don't think you need to remake it because it's very much a 1967. But maybe if someone wanted to do something with the material, I'm not suggesting that they need to do something or they should do something, but if they were, if Hollywood decides that, let's go revisit this, I think the best thing would be is that where would Andy be now at the age of 50? Would he be part of politics? Would he be part of something?
He'd probably be the politician.
Yeah. And again, would he be the Antichrist?
Precisely. What decisions did he make?
Like The Omen.
To be honest, I just don't want any sequels to Rosemary's Baby. I mean, I don't. I think I did see the TV movie a long time ago. I just don't even count it. It's like it's just this really stupid movie.
I haven't seen it.
And like, I just like leaving things where they are. Like, I just, just figure out how did Rosemary end up? Did she get him away from the coven? Blah blah. I just didn't really want any. I didn't like Ira Levin's thing either. I just thought I think Rosemary's Baby is just of its time. It came out in the 60s during that whole "Is God Dead?" People really were talking about that. It made the cover of the magazine. And don't forget, too, this was during the youth culture. And there was a saying, never trust anyone over 30. And Rosemary, and Rosemary's like probably at 26, whatever. And she kind of runs right into the patriarchy, and she runs right into the older generation.
No kidding.
User, and there was just something. The story is of its time, and it just works so beautifully there. And I just think any attempts to update it or remake it or whatever are just doomed to not live up to what it was. Again, it was a kind of a lightning in a bottle thing. It's just all the elements came together,
Precisely.
Right.
So, like I said, Ira Levin planned in his novel the date of the Rosemary's inception, or the baby's inception, and that literally, coincided with the actual Pope coming to New York City in actual real life. So, it was meant to be, I guess. So
I think we're quite lucky that the TV miniseries flopped badly. Because I think it was supposed to be a pilot for an ongoing series, and I think that's what they were planning at that time. But because it flopped, it basically died to death. So,
well, how many miniseries or whatever or TV shows actually do well when they're trying to make advent on television as opposed to the movie itself? I mean, very little.
I think if you're going to take a film franchise and turn it into a television series franchise, I think you have to be a lot more, well, especially now that television is the new films, let's face it. Television nowadays
right.
is what Hollywood's producing as far as films are concerned. And I think you would need to go about it like you do with Fargo, for instance, where you have every season's a different story sort of thing.
Right.
It works beautifully.
Yeah. Or you have to look at, or do, let's take Batman, let's say Gotham, where you have to go, let's look at the early age, but instead of like making it about Bruce Wayne, let's make it about Gordon instead. And let's see what his beginnings are. And then you can throw in for stuff for the Batman people, like the beginning Catwoman, blah-de-da-de-da. And I think you have to be a lot more, I think, because there's so much choice and because of Netflix and Amazon.
Yeah.
I think you got to be a bit more clever.
Unless there's a really compelling backstory. So with
like Bates Motel.
Whatever happened to Baby Jane? I mean, you've got these two, Joan Crawford and Betty Davis. That backstory was, which they did in this series. That was maybe an episode or two too long, but at least there was a backstory there to say how this came about.
Right.
Right. That could be interesting if the material is there. I don't think it is for Rosemary's Baby.
No.
I think if you are going to go to a film and do a television series, I think you got to add to the mythos to it without taking away anything from the film. It's with Bates Motel. Bates Motel is a perfect example. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is based on a movie,
right?
A bad movie, but you got a decent out of it. And I think that's how you got to play it. If you're going to remake the original, I mean, that's what Bates Motel works, because at no time do you get a remake of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho at all. But you get everything leading up to Psycho. And then
it's done by artists. It's done by people who know what they're doing, who have something to say. And some people may argue with me on the remake of Suspiria, but I thought it was really a fascinating movie, and I really like it. It's very different,
right?
But exploring different aspects of, I mean, he's kind of like an auteur. He's not kind of, he is an auteur. But I mean, and I know some people really hate the remake, but I thought it was really interesting. It was artistic. I want to see it again. And that's a sign of a movie that at least has something going on. I want to see it again and get more out of it.
I like the remake of Suspiria. I like the way that they took it in a different direction. Mm-hmm. There is little odes to the original, and then there's a little pepper throughout. And that's what I quite like about it. The only bad thing I can say about Suspiria, I do think it's a little bit too long at times, but overall I think it's a great film, and I think it's a great ode to Dario Argento's Suspiria, but it's a movie that stands on its own.
Yeah, and didn't you love seeing Jessica Harper again? I mean, that was really wonderful.
And to be honest, anytime you got Tilda Swinton doing anything, you got her playing 4 roles in this.
Yeah,
she's playing a man. You don't even know it's her.
I didn't. I really didn't.
I didn't either. So, and I think that if you are going to remake something, I think you got to make it truly original. It's a bit like Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween. Love it or hate it, but at least he made it his own.
I will guarantee you, though.
Find something, yeah.
I'll guarantee you somebody owns the rights to Rosemary's Baby, the musical, because
I would bet.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's just they're just throwing that spaghetti up on the wall all the time to see what sticks, and the strangest things do stick. It's not art, but it's an entertainment. But wow, there's a built-in audience for that, and Rosemary's got a couple songs.
It could work. To be honest, it could work because you have something that's centrally located, it doesn't really move, and you probably could do. I mean, they made the House of Haunted Hill. It's on stage. There's a stage show running around New York. It's transferring into the West End this year. And it's doing fantastically well. I saw The Exorcist. They did The Exorcist stage play of that. It's okay. You had Ian McKellen playing the voice of the devil, and every time he opened his mouth, you think, oh, it's Gandalf, which doesn't help. But, I think, and there's even a ballet of House of Haunted Hill that's doing fantastically well in Europe at the moment. So I think that if Rosemary's Baby was going to find a new reincantation of it or a rethink, I think a stage show or even a musical if it's written by the same people. I mean, I wouldn't want some hammy songs in there written by like Stephen Schwartz or something like that. But if you had someone who knew what they were talking about and had something really interesting and intricate, it could work really well. I mean, I could even see like a ballet of the Rosemary's Baby would probably work quite well.
Yeah. So there's just different mediums to look at.
Yeah. I mean, I saw Jerry Springer the opera when it was here, and it was fantastic.
I have not heard of that one.
Oh, it's fantastic. And there's Anna Nicole Smith, the opera,
which was fantastic.
Yeah,
unbelievable, wonderful.
Really?
Yes.
I had not heard of either.
I didn't care for Jerry Springer. That started out of Chicago. I didn't care for that, but I heard the other productions were good. So.
Well, we had David Soul play Jerry Springer, which looked just like him, and
kidding.
My friend Allison was in it as well, so I think that's probably why I quite liked it. She got a disco hit out of the song, so hey.
Always important. Critical.
She played the prostitute.
There needs to be a Rosemary's Baby disco hit.
Yeah. Well, Sweeney Todd had a disco hit. But
I like Sweeney Todd.
My friend Allison got to play the part of the prostitute, and she had that song, All I Want to Do Is Fucking Dance, and they turned it into a disco mega mix hit. It went all over the world. She didn't get any money for it, but hey, she did well. But yeah, I think if you are gonna do Rosemary's Baby, I think that as we were saying before, I think you can look at different platforms to look at it, or maybe do a homage to it to a certain extent. But I mean, let's face it. I mean, what makes Rosemary's Baby what it is what Roman Polanski did with all the the references in it. I don't think you can ever replace Ruth Gordon with anybody.
No.
Mia Farrow, there's probably some other actresses that you probably could do, but, Mia Farrow and John Cassavetes together, those two different personalities working off each other, because they're two, we got a movie actress and we got the actor, and these two playing off each other, I think is, you got those kind of stuff playing off on the screen. And that's why I don't think that you could actually really do a remake unless you do look at other platforms, as we were saying before. I mean, even Ira Levin couldn't write a sequel to this, and he's the original author.
What? Didn't he dedicate the sequel to Mia Farrow? I wonder if there was talk of doing a film version of Son of Rosemary. Do you think?
I think it's one of those books that kind of sold, but the critics hated it. It got so lampooned badly. And I think that's one of those books that sold really well before it was released. Then it got released, and people read it, and they kind of like just fell off like really quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that
it was such a cash grab. Yeah.
I think that spoiler alert, which I've already spoiled anyway, but if it didn't have that Bobby Ewing ending to it, I think it would have been a better book. But it's one of those books, it's a bit like, it's why Isn't My Dallas died a death? Is basically because you're watching Dallas, everyone's into Dallas. They kill Bobby off, and then you're watching a year to 2 years of Dallas. Then Bobby comes back, and apparently the previous 2 years was all a fucking dream.
Right.
And that's the problem with Rosemary's, the Son of Rosemary. You're reading it. It's a decent story. It's going in the right way, and you see Rosemary's grief, and you see what's happened to Adrian or Andy, sort of thing, and you know what's happened to the guy, sort of thing, and you're reading it. And it's quite interesting. And then she wakes up. It's all been a dream, and her and Guy are still together. It's 1965, and they haven't moved into the house yet. but Andy, the son of the devils, hasn't even happened. So basically, what he did with 2 to 3 pages, he wiped out Rosemary's Baby and the Son of Rosemary that you read. And none of it happened. It was all been one big dream. And I think, I don't know what he was thinking, but if I was his agent or if I was his editor, I probably would be beating the shit out of Ira. Go, what the hell do you think you're doing?
Right.
And it's almost like a big fuck you. This is my book. I made it all up, and it doesn't mean anything. And that's what you get with the Son of Rosemary. It means that Rosemary's Baby doesn't mean anything, and the book that you just read means nothing because it's all a dream, so it doesn't matter. And I think that's probably why Son of Rosemary was a big, huge fail.
Well, people are probably disappointed.
Well, I think that any time that you take something that everyone loves, and Rosemary's Baby, the novel and the film, are highly loved by a lot of people and highly acclaimed by a lot of people, and to write it off like that in a sequel, say that it never happened and it's all a dream, I think you're slapping everyone who takes something very dearly to their heart, and you basically said, fuck you. That's pretty much what you've done, isn't it? It's a bit like Stephen King. It's a bit like Castle Rock. Everyone loved Castle Rock and stuff like this, and he set most of his novels in there, whether it was, Dead Zone, everything's connected, even Carrie's connected, and Salem's Lot's connected in this, big community. And then he decides one day he doesn't want to do it, so he writes a book called Needful Things, and he blows the whole town up. And it took a while for people to get back into Stephen King, because he's basically said, I just blew everybody up, so it doesn't matter. This town doesn't matter anymore. And then he started out with Derry.
Right.
And of course, he flopped a little bit here with Tommy Knockers and stuff like this. And then finally he wrote It, and now everything takes place around Derry. So he built this town up again, and all the stories subsequent are connected to Derry. But, it's almost like the author has no regard for the fans and people that love him so much. And it's like, okay, I'm sick of this. I no longer want anything to do with this, so I'm going to get rid of it. It is a 2 fingers up to people. And I think that's what he did with Son of Rosemary, And I think if you're an author, it's probably not wise to do that. Luckily, Son of Rosemary will never live on. I don't think a lot of people will read it because it didn't make a lot of money. It's really hard to find. You can find a Kindle version of it, but Kindle version is a lot more pricier than the rest of Ira Levin's books. And it's a hard book to find that's published. So I think that a lot of people won't get it unless you're a really, really hard fan.
Right. Well, I didn't read it yet, so you got me wondering. I got to watch the movie. I guess you said it was on YouTube, the second one.
Oh,
I have not seen it.
That has nothing to do with the Son of Rosemary. That is a bunch of TV
hoopla
screenwriters who got together and said, wouldn't this be a good idea?
And it probably wasn't a good idea, the whole series of good ideas.
There's one scene where Andy's grown up, and to be honest, it takes place 8 years after the first part of it does, of Andy. And now we got Patty Duke, I said before, doing her overacting Patty Duke, not miracle worker right. Patty Duke, but, Valley of the Dolls Patty Duke. And then it jumps to him being like a 20-year-old living with Tina Louise. And he's into rock music, and he's going to change the world through rock music. And he paints his face like a reject from Godspell.
It sounds like The Crow.
Yeah, it's not good, but
I like The Crow though. Actually, I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean, if you really desperate, and and it's either look what's happened to Rosemary's Baby or committing suicide, I would suggest suicide.
Okay. Point taken. So, you didn't like the movie.
I watched it. It's just time I could have been watching something else.
Have you seen it, Dwayne?
No.
No, you, Robert?
I tend to after that.
No.
Riveting review.
So basically, what we're going to do is get to what our final thoughts are. So, Rob, what are your final thoughts of Rosemary's Baby, the book and the novel?
My final thoughts are: if you don't know the story at all, you're so lucky, because you should watch it or read it. And if you don't know anything about it, you're just so lucky. I mean, I was lucky enough as a kid I saw the movie first, and it really frightened me. And it made me also, it was a harsh lesson. How old was I? Not terribly old, probably maybe 10 or something. And I learned the harsh lesson via film that sometimes bad guys win. So read the movie, read the book. They're both perfect. End of story, as far as I'm concerned.
And what about yourself, Dwayne? What about yourself, Dwayne? What are your final thoughts?
Oh, I certainly echo those sentiments. I think I really can't add too much to it, except that if you're a Scrabble player,
right.
you may want to read the movie. Read the movie. Yeah, read the movie. Because I just love that, and the playfulness of the language, and it's a book and a film with so many little clues along the way. They're just breadcrumbs, and you kind of have a feeling for what may happen, but how bad could this be for Rosemary, and again for you, since you kind of are Rosemary in this, I feel. It's brilliant. It's simply one of, I think it's probably one of the most perfect books, and which is why, to paraphrase Jacqueline Suzanne, that Roman Polanski was probably a better typist than a screenwriter.
Oh.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Jack and a bit of shade. What about yourself, Vix? What are your final thoughts?
I love the movie, but like I said, I noticed things being an older Vicky as opposed to the younger Vicky watching it. A lot of that patriarchy stuff kind of went right over my head, because I'm not really one to just go against the established. I try to keep my mouth shut, basically, because my mouth gets me in trouble. But I love the movie. I thought it was, I like I said, Ruth Gordon was brilliant. I love her in anything because she just cracks me up, because she just plays the best old lady on the planet. And like I said, it kind of like I like the movie, I like the book, but God, man, it just kind of pushed a lot of buttons in me and how women were treated back then, And you don't really realize it until you watch a film that was made in the 60s like this, and actually written, with people are being born in the 40s and 50s and, coming up in the 60s. But I liked it. I think it's one of those epic horror flicks everybody's got to watch, and the book is great too. So it gets a thumbs up, irregardless of patriarchy.
And personally, I think Rosemary's Baby is one of those books and films that are very, very important. I think if you're a horror fan or you're looking for a really good drama film, I think the film is very, very important. I think for all filmmakers, if you are a filmmaker or interested in getting into film, I think reading the book Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin and the film are a very, very good lesson about a way to adapt something and do it effectively and meaningfully. And I think it still lives on. I think it still feels fresh watching it today than it did when it came out. And I think historically, I think it's one of those films that's very, very important. And I think it's also important to reflect on the past, as you're moving forward with life. And I think Rosemary's Baby shows you how things were, and it gives you a more realistic view of it. So,
no reboots, please.
Yeah. Well, never say never. It's Hollywood.
I know.
So what we want to do is say goodbye to our guests. But before we say goodbye to our guests, just remember that you can always follow us on our social media, which are available at www.facebook.com. And our groups are LL Podcast. Now, we do have a group, and we also have a member special page on there as well. You can also find us on Twitter, TikTok, Tumblr, and various other social medias.
Spotify.
And we're also available on our podcast, of course. You're probably listening. It's available on Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, and SoundCloud, and various other podcasting platforms. You can also find us at www.llpodcast.com, and make sure you sign up for our website, because when you sign up to our website, you get our monthly newsletter, which will tell you how to keep in contact with what our co-guest hosts are up to, how to buy their books, and make sure that it keeps you in track of what's coming up in the future months and future episodes.
All hateful emails forward to Keith. He loves hateful emails.
Yes, I know how to read those, and I promise you I will read them, and I promise not to get snarky and any snarky comments later on to you. I will take them in fully before I put them into the recycling bin. So this is our month of Love Will Keep Us Together. So always remember that, if you want to get ahead and you're living next door to an old couple, make sure they belong to a coven. So therefore you can become successful. Next month, we're going to be dealing with Ira Levin's Stepford Wives and Get Out. The reason why Stepford Wives and Get Out are being held together is because they're both considered to be similar themes. And Get Out takes its nod from Stepford Wives, and that will be next month. And we'll be here with Vicky and John and myself. So before we like to say goodbye, let's say goodbye to each of our guests. So goodbye, Rob.
Bye. See you next time, guys.
Say goodbye, Dwayne.
It's been an honor. Thank you, guys.
And say goodbye, Vix.
See y'all later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And good night for myself, and we'll talk to you next week.
What have you done to its eyes?
He has his father's eyes. 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 He has his father's eyes.
I was born in the gutter with a spear in my heart, rolled out of my belly. I was already smart. I raised hell before me. I'll make hunger and greed the reaper of plenty can satisfy need. I looked at my body. It was tattered and torn. I was already dying long before I was born. Well, let me sing you the devil's song. I wanna sing you the devil's song. Let me sing you the devil's song. It's a real tragedy. Well, it's a real tragedy. Do I believe? 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 Do I
is his father, not Guy. He came up from hell and begat the son of mortal woman. Hail, Satan!
Hail, Satan!
Satan is his father, and his name is Adrian. He shall overthrow the mighty and lay waste their temples. He shall redeem the despised and wreak vengeance in the name of the burned and the tortured. Hail, Adrian! Hail, Adrian!